Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In this video I'd like to look at how the USE Minis, in particular the ES, unfolded yesterday, which was Friday the 2nd of November. For this I'm using our MTP RT add-ons for NinjaTrader 7, which you're looking at here. So just to have a quick look at this chart, this is a 5-minute chart of the ES, and as you can see we had a very nice TS3 sell setup here arrive. This was on a black STF, so this would have been a perfectly standard and normal trade setup for all new users for MTPredictor. So let's put the analysis on. We put the analysis on. You can see it gives us our position sizing to keep our initial risk small under control. At the first target, there was a potential profit of 3.1R. Standard trade management guidelines say that when we get to the first target, which is here, we come down, look at the STF. In this case, the STF was just hitting our strength band, which is our grey band here. Therefore, that's what we call strong. Therefore, we swap to our ATR stop to manage the trade, and this would have run the trade a little bit further down to here, and you would have been stopped out for a very nice 4R profit. So here, using standard MTPredictor trade management guidelines, TS3 sell setup, coming down here using the ATR stop, the result would have been a nice 4R profit. In other words, the profit would have been approximately 4 times the initial risk. So a good trade setup. However, I'd like to look at this particular setup with our advanced traders' eyes on. In other words, let's have a look at how this trade setup appears, but in relation to the larger degree trend. So I'll just clear this chart off. For this we go to the 15-minute chart. So for 3 and 5 minute charts we look at the 15-minute chart to gauge the larger degree trend. Now for this we have a look at how the market or where this setup here, and this is where the TS3 sell setup would have been here on the 15-minute charts. It would have been where I'm circling the mouse there. So I want to see how this sits in relation to prior pivots. In other words, let's go back to the last major pivot here and see whether we define this as a major pivot. So for this we either use the DPs of a prior pivot, and you can see it was through this one, so that would not have been relevant. However, if we put the Elliott waves on here, again it's dead easy, right mouse click, Elliott wave intermediate. Can you see how the open on Friday came in right at the minimum wave 5 WPT? So here we had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with this high right at the minimum wave 5 WPT. So this set the high of the day on Friday as being what we call an important high, in other words a major high. So with this in mind, let's go back to the 3-minute chart, sorry the 5-minute chart, because if we look at the 3-minute chart quickly, you can see there was no setup on the 3-minute chart. It actually came in on the 5-minute. That's why we always have our scanners running. So let's have a look at this and see how this unfolded. So we already know that this high here, which was the high of the day on Friday, we defined as a major high, in other words an important high, and we did that by looking at resistance on the 15-minute chart, and that's how we define whether a high is important or not, because it's whether it's at support or resistance on the higher time frame, which in this case is the 15-minute. So here's the major high. The market made an initial decline down here. It then made a 1, 2, 3, or in this case an ABC. If I put the analysis on, you can see here an ABC correction into what we call the initial correction of the initial move of a major high. So in Elliott wave terms, this at the top here being a major high is the start of the sequence. This initial decline off the high is a wave 1 in Elliott wave terms. Then the rally back up here is the initial correction, which in Elliott wave terms is a wave 2. A wave 2 normally subdivides into a minor ABC pattern, which is exactly what we have here, ABC. So this high here we'd define as a wave 2. Question, what follows a wave 2? Normally a wave 3. So therefore, rather than going for our first target, which we had here, as I said at the beginning of the video, we'd actually look to try and go for our typical wave 3 WPT. In other words, off this wave 2, we're anticipating a strong wave 3 type decline, and as you can see that's exactly what it did with the market coming down, and it touched this literally pretty much on the close. So if we now amend the risk reward analysis to show that down there, you can see that the actual result of this trade would have been nearer a 9R profit. In other words, at the typical wave 3 WPT, the profit would have been approximately 9 times greater than the initial risk. And this is why these Holy Grail trade setups are so good, because a wave 3 is normally the strongest and longest wave in any completed 5-wave sequence, and it allows you to get in right at the end of the wave 2 or right at the start of the wave 3, which allows you to enter this trade with the smallest initial risk. So you have a trade that has a very big profit potential for a small initial risk. And this is my favorite trade because I think it's one of the best trades in the book because of the small initial risk and large profit potential. So that's a quick review of the ES, and again it was all set up because we had the wave 5 high there on the 15-minute chart that set up our initial decline, our initial rally, then decline back down. And if I look at this on the 15-minute chart, and I can put the wave 3 WPTs on here, so it's 1, 2, 3 clicks, you can see this is what it looks like on the 15-minute chart. Wave 1, wave 2, down to wave 3. And that's exactly what we had on the 5-minute chart here, with our TS3 sell setup here coming in and catching the high beautifully, which then set up our trade, but our trade not into the first target, actually into the typical wave 3 target, and the result a very, very nice plus 9R profit. So turning an initial risk of approximately $350, which again uses our position sizing to keep our initial risk small, and turning that into a potential profit of just over $3,100. So a very good day with a brilliant example of the MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup on Friday.